Thank you for making the time.
Mm.
And so, for all of you out there, Nancy and I have known each other for many, many, many years. And I was actually trying to remember where we met, Nancy, and I think it was through TCI. Am I right?
I
You
think
were
so.
in the group that we facilitated. So it's been forever, at least 10 years. And Nancy has also participated in my mastermind. We've coached together, and she is just, I call Nancy my wisdom keeper. Like, she just is an incredible resource for information, for knowledge, for wisdom, especially working with women and women business owners and the different transitions that we go through in our lives. And so I love just having dialogue with you in general about all of those topics. But before we get into the conversation of, a time when you were fierce, Nancy, that you'd like to share today, can you just share with the women 30 seconds of, an intro, who you are, what you do, so that they can learn a little bit more about you?
Mhm. Sure. Well, first off, thank you so much for inviting me to this fierce conversation. I have admired you, and I can't even say from afar, right? From up close for many, many years, Monique. So thank you. Um, Women-owned businesses, and for over 30 years now. I run a nonprofit. That's, my 9 to 5 job is I run a nonprofit called the Women's Business Development Council of Florida. And we do basically 3 things through the council. We certify women-owned businesses, which means that we prove that they own, operate, manage, and independently control 50% or more of their company. We connect with women, and we help them connect with business development opportunities. And we champion women, which means we do a lot of education and uplifting of women through different programs. And I wake up every morning and look forward to the day and who am I going to meet and who am I going to be inspired by. Women business owners are very creative, and
Yeah.
especially throughout the pandemic, even more creative, right? As we've had to pivot and take care of family and employees and friends and the community and all. So I always say I'm one of the lucky ones. I get to live the motto on a daily basis. My personal motto is connections, creativity, and courage in
Yes.
things. And I get to connect, I get to be creative, and I get to be courageous, but more than that, witness the courage of women who are business owners, because that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I admire about you is I've seen you really embody those three aspects of your motto, like completely. So you've always been an inspiration to me, and I know you're going to be an inspiration to everyone who listens to this. So Nancy, let's jump right on in. And I know that you've had many fierce moments just from knowing you so long, but I would love for you to share um, a moment in your life. It could be recent or it could be in the past that you felt you were fierce, however you define that. And we'll go into how you define it. But
Mm-hmm.
what is that for you today?
Well, I think, as you said, there have been many, many moments, but the one that I think stands out the most when we got the diagnosis that my husband, at the time, 33 years, had cancer.
Mm.
And I remember sitting in that tiny little office, the oncologist office, and the oncologist was, talking to Joe about the treatment, about the diagnosis, and my husband said, "Okay, I get all that, but what's my prognosis?" And the doctor said, "Well, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have said, get your affairs in order. You don't have very much longer to live. But now, with all the progress, we can say 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And in those 3 to 5 years, even more progress will happen." And I remember I had like an out of body experience. I found myself looking down on, at the people in the room. I was actively listening, but I was looking down. And I remember clearly hearing my yoga teacher's voice. So I had a fabulous yoga teacher named Vic Munoz who taught me many, many things. And one of the things he said early on when I started working with Vic, he said, we are all here to learn something or to experience something.
Yeah.
And the lucky few of us who figure out what that is can really make a difference.
Mm.
Oh, at that point, I thought, okay, that's what I'm here for. I'm here
Right.
to help Joe, the love of my life, and my son and myself transition
Right.
from this physical body that he has that is so damaged to whatever is next for him. And I therefore embraced it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I didn't cry. I'm not going to say I wasn't angry because all of those things happened. But I also looked at, okay, what can I do for him?
Yeah.
And how can I play an important role in this very important transition in his life? So that's, what we can talk about, because
It's
I
a,
learned
yeah.
a lot of lessons through that process.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your lessons, Nancy. And I know what some of them are, but we haven't talked about this for a while because it's
Mm.
been a few years.
Yeah.
And the interesting part, I think, of this conversation for everyone to know is that Joe himself was a doctor, right? And so just I remember that was a big thing for me going, wow, even though he's a doctor, right? Look at how he is approaching this. And then because of his decision on how to approach it, this is what you stepped in to do for him, which was incredible. So I'd love to hear, and I know the ladies as well are going to want to know, what did you learn from this, Nancy?
Yeah. Well, first off, I started doing some research, right?
Mm-hmm.
How to help people transition.
Right.
Because even though the prognosis was 3 to 5 years, he was at a stage 4. And so
Mm-hmm.
knew that it was possibly not going to last 3 to 5 years, right? That his
Right.
life would probably end before that. And I remember the year before this all happened, I got in my Facebook feed, I don't know how, an essay by a woman named Heather Plett. And the essay was about holding space. And I read this and I thought, this is phenomenal. She told the story of how she helped her mother transition. Her mother
Wow.
was in hospice care and needed to let go. And she and her sisters made a pact and they said, we will honor whatever mom wants and we're going to make this transition as seamless as possible. And I thought back then, my family was healthy. It was just like, oh, wow, that's really an interesting concept of holding space.
Yeah.
Little did I know that, I learned that because I needed to be able to hold space for Joe. So in doing the research, I found out that women, especially because obviously my world is women, right? Women
Yes.
50 different transitions in their lifetime. And when I
50,
first
50,
50,
50. Wow.
when I first read
Okay.
that, how is that possible? 50 transitions. Then the article went on to say, well, there are 3 kinds of transitions. They're the seamless transitions. So we go from girl to adolescent to woman, or we go from kindergarten to first grade, or middle school to high school. Pretty seamless, right? Um, so that's one kind of transition. A second kind of transition are the ones that we choose. So we choose to get married. We
Okay.
choose to get divorced. We choose to have a child. We choose to start a business. So the self-selected transitions, and there are a lot of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the third kind of transitions are the ones you didn't see coming. So
Right.
you lose your job, you lose your business, you have a health crisis, etc. And as I was doing the reading, I thought, okay, so there are these different kinds of transitions. Which transition am I in? And I was in that last
That
transition.
last one. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I also found this woman who helped with transitions, and she said that what you have to do is step into the space between no longer this and not yet that. And
Wow.
get
Okay.
stuck in that space,
They
right? Because
do.
you were comfortable with things the way they are, right? and we don't want those things to change no matter what.
Yes.
And it's scary to go into the not yet that space. So the transition happens in that space.
Mm.
Right. So when I do I actually created a workshop called The Art of an Elegant Transition.
Yes.
Um, when I do the workshop, I have the statement, no longer this and not yet that.
And not yet that.
I have three dots, the ellipses, and I focus on that because that's where the magic happens. And that's where you can take control of that space.
Yes. Oh, there's so much magic. And I'm taking a lot of notes here because there's so much I want to touch on. With that learning, the first thing that came to my mind was, and we talk about a lot of these things in this group, right? The fact that there's energy outside of us, the fact that we are always guided and protected, and that there are no coincidences, right? So seeing that article on Facebook was no coincidence, right? And sometimes we don't pay attention to these coincidences. We're like, nah, that's not for me. But the fact that if we can pay attention to when the universe is sending us something and
Mm-hmm.
really stop and pause and dive into it, that is a stepping stone into that, dot, 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 what's next, right?
Right.
And that is so powerful that you allow yourself to kind of see what's being given to you and take it in as a learning experience for yourself.
Right.
Super powerful.
Yeah, and I think it has to do with the fact that I like to find connections,
Yeah.
right? I like to say, okay, why did this come? What lesson, what is it about this that I need to pay attention to? And fortunately, I found that great article, right? And this woman from Canada was pretty well known in her community in Canada, but that article catapulted her to expert status. It went viral. That's probably why it came into my feed, right? But the interesting thing is you can elect to create the transition you want, right?
Yes.
And as I was, going through this process myself, and I do workshops all the time. I love to train. I love to coach and consult. So as I said, I created this workshop called The Art of an Elegant Transition. And I chose the word elegant because at its Latin root, elegant is elegere, which
Okay.
is to choose.
Choose. Oh, so
So
powerful.
choose the transition you want to have.
Yeah.
And I came up with 5 elements of this elegant transition. The first element is that you have to acknowledge you're in transition, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us are unsettled. We're upset. We're, unsettled, blah.
Fighting it and fighting the reality. Yeah.
Fighting. And so the first thing is to acknowledge that you're in transition, to say, okay, this is new. This is happening. How do I feel about it? Right.
Yeah.
So, so once you do your acknowledgement, that's a great, right? The second step is to actually accept that you're, because you can acknowledge up one way and down the other.
Yes.
I'm in transition, then you're going to stay stuck in the and we all have that friend who is stuck in the why. Why did this happen to me? Why did he leave? Why did I lose my job? Why can't I make more money? Why? And until we move from why to how, stuck, right?
Yeah.
So the second step is really to acknowledge, okay? The third step is to look at your strengths, your own strengths, focus on those skills. So I call it adapting skills.
Okay.
And a couple of things that I did in my transition, right, to adapt my skills and to focus on my strengths had some long-lasting effects. So I'm currently an author of 2 books. I'm working on 2 more. And it all started because of a weekly blog. During this ordeal, um, I felt and determined that there were things obviously I couldn't control, right? The illness I could not control. But what I did to be creative, because remember, creativity is one of my
Yep.
core, how could I continue to be creative? Um, I decided I'm going to write a weekly blog.
Yep.
I control what I do, and I called it the Tuesday Toolbox. And every day, I would have, 250, 300 words of a business development tool for, and I would start writing, researching on Friday, and then, write on Saturday, let it sit on Monday and Sunday, get back to it on Monday. And every week it went out. And and we would post it on LinkedIn. And I had someone reach out to me and say, "These are really great. You should write a book." Oh,
Yes.
thank you very much. But I'm thinking, I'm not going to write a book. There'd be a business development book. Who am I to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Planted this seed. And I thought, okay, well, at the time that she had reached out to me, I had 86 blogs under.
Wow.
And, I hired a copy editor, and I sent her the blogs, and she came and I said, "Can I turn this into a book?" She said, "You have 3 books here.
Wow.
You have a book for women that are just starting out because you have tips for how to set up your business, how to.
Mm-hmm.
You have a book for women who are scaling, and you have a book for women who are exiting and looking at what's next." And
Yes.
lo and behold, without trying too hard, I was able to publish 2 books. And that I'm sharing that because that's the strength that I had, right? Right.
Yes.
And communicating, researching, coaching and training, consulting is a really big strength of mine. So I
Yeah.
use that in that third element of adapting your skills, and it gave me comfort.
Yeah. And I have to say, Nancy, also, because I know you so well, and I will ask you to touch on creativity when we talk about flow, but creativity is also your strength,
Mm,
right? And so this gave you an avenue to be creative and to step outside of the pain of the transition and all of the ways that you had to almost set aside yourself to focus on what Joe wanted and how he wanted to elegantly transition,
right.
right? Because a lot of times, what I know from other people who have gone through similar circumstances is holding the space for someone, especially in a terminal situation, is very hard. We want to make it about us. I don't want to be in pain. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to be without him. But you were able to really get out of that and
Mm,
really hold the space and say, this is about Joe, and this is his life, and this is the way he wants to transition. But what you did do, in addition to that, is find a way to support yourself
mhm.
through your strengths, which you're talking about here, which is, incredible to see now that through the struggle and the pain, you really allowed yourself to catapult into massive personal growth and professional growth.
Right. Yeah. Because I felt it was something that I could control. Right.
Yes.
Knowing that, and I was Joe's primary caregiver. I moved my office into my home. I was his primary caregiver. And but I
Mm.
knew on Fridays I was going to have to come up with a topic and start doing some research. I love to read. I love to research. So it allowed me to say, okay, I'm not going to lose myself in
Right.
transition. I need to be strong. About the put your oxygen mask on first, right? So
Yes.
my tank, which was I still have to keep my job right through this.
Yep.
I have to produce things for our members. So I found a creative way to do that, which was,
Yeah.
do this blog and put a lot of thought and effort into the blog. And I since then, I tell people, if you want to write a book, start with a blog, because
Yes.
I started out thinking I'm going to write a book. I would still be on the first blank page.
Yes.
The blog, it's 250 to 300 words. That's easy to manage,
Yes.
right? So yeah, if somebody's interested in writing a book, start with a blog.
And I think that this is also a marketing strategy for a lot of us who are solopreneurs and content people. We don't realize the amount of content we've created over the years. And instead of continuing to create new content, what can we do with all of that content, which is exactly what you did. So, okay, we talked about acknowledging you're in the transition, accepting that you're in the transition, looking at your strengths so that you can adapt, using that as a method of adapting. What's number 4 and number 5?
So number 4 is accountability partner.
Oh, okay. Yes. So
That's
important.
pretty amazing. So,
Okay.
you and Rosina were accountability partners portion of this, right?
Yes.
I think that women business owners can get very lonely.
Yeah.
And when you're in a major transition, it can be very lonely because remember, no longer this. So you've got a whole bunch of people who know you in this way, right?
Yes.
And sometimes we want to go back to those people because it's comfortable and they know us and they're going to support us, but is it the right kind of support, right? And accountability groups, mastermind groups, these are all really, really great for many reasons. The least of which is that if you are in an accountability group and you say you're going to make 5 phone calls to get new business, on Monday morning when that group meets again, you better have made your 5.
Yes.
It's really good to set some goals. It's also really good just to bounce ideas, right? Yes. This container that you have created, Monique, is a really great accountability group, right? Because we're all interested in the same thing. We have our goals, we have our strengths, we have our challenges, and being able to communicate freely and in confidence works really, really well. So find yourself an accountability group that's really, really helpful. And then the 5th element of an elegant transition is really your attitude, and it kind of relates throughout the whole thing, right? So I'm not gonna lie and say there weren't days where I thought I just can't get out of bed, right? Yeah. I can't do this, especially after Joe passed. Right. So during the time that he was sick, of course, I was out of bed, ready.
Yes. You were going on all cylinders, pushing. Yes.
Right. And then after he passed, you can go into this very dark hole of why, right? Yeah. Why did this happen? He was only 62 years old. How, you can do that. So that's where I decided, okay, I'm going to really tap into my creativity at this point. See, what can I do that's going to get me out of this funk that I am in? So I'm a big believer in having a gratitude practice. Yeah. And shortly after Joe passed, I did a 30-day thank you note challenge.
Oh my gosh, I love this challenge. Yep.
And I people to join me, and I said we were going to write 5 thank you notes a day for 30 days. And I was inspired by John Israel, who I had met through a coaching program, who did the same challenge for 365 days. So I thought I can do 30 days. If Izzy can do 365 days, I can find a group of people, a group of women who are going to work with me and get through this.
Yes.
So every morning I did a short video on the challenge today is to write 5 letters, and here's how you can do that. So one video talked about, if you think you don't have 30 people to write to, group the people, who are your service providers, who are your friends, who are your teachers that you want to reach back out to. And what I put in the challenge is it would be great to actually mail these letters, but if the person passed or you're not in contact with the person, you can still write the note.
Yes,
right? It'll make you feel better.
absolutely.
And then I suggested, look at your family and friends, right? And how are they going to feel to get just 3 lines from you of how thankful you are, that they're in your life?
Yes.
So that really changed me from being in that dark space to being in a space of gratitude, because as the letters were going out, I was getting letters back.
I love
Um,
it.
and as I was doing these short videos, I was getting comments back from people. So I had like a shower of gratitude, right?
Yeah.
I think that that's what sometimes we need
And
is
it's amazing to me, Nancy, that of course the thought came to you once Joe had already transitioned, but and what a beautiful thing that it did, because it was at a moment in your life when you really needed to not feel alone,
yeah,
right? And so being showered with thank yous and I appreciate you, and what a joy this has been to hear from you, and everything I'm sure that you heard really allowed you to forget, even if for a moment,
mhm,
what you had just been through,
mhm,
and kind
mhm.
of get you over that bridge to the other side.
Yeah, yeah, and put it in perspective too.
Yeah.
But so
Hmm.
here is what happened. Here's what I got out of what happened, and here's what I'm going to move forward. Right.
Right.
So there's a therapist I follow on Facebook called Karen Salmonson,
Okay.
and Karen Salmonson has this saying, blessings. So a combination of blessings and lessons, right?
Ooh, yes.
And says you always have to remember to find the blessing,
Mm. Yeah.
actually name that lesson and turn it into some kind of a blessing. And
Yes.
so that has really helped, and I think will help a lot with transitions, right?
Yeah.
Because we can control ourselves, but we can't control outside of ourselves, right?
No.
And sometimes we think, oh, it's so easy. Let me just let this roll off my back. Well, that's not always easy to do, right? Somebody slights you, somebody is unkind. It's not, and especially if you're in the midst of a transition, right?
Yes.
Um, that can really weigh on you. So, what is the lesson? And I believe that the universe sends us lessons. The
Yeah.
things we have to learn, the things we need to work on, always keep showing up until we finally work that thing out, right?
Yes. It's like,
Whatever.
how many times am I going to have to send you this lesson?
Exactly. So I think
Wow, Nancy.
that the fifth element is really your attitude
Right.
toward the whole thing and getting help, So
Absolutely. The attitude I think is really important. I have this emotional scale
mm,
um, bookmark, and it reminds us that, going back to what you said, which is a power tip in and of itself, is recognizing that we always have choice.
mm,
Even in the moments where we think we have zero control,
mhm,
we always have a choice. And in those moments with zero control, maybe the only choice we have is to look at how we're thinking and feeling and try to shift that, if anything else, right? So, for example, the very last um, emotion on the scale is fear, grief, depression, despair, and powerlessness, right? It goes back to the why. Why me? Why Joe? You know, why now? And then as you go up, it's just a little bit better, right? So maybe instead of powerlessness, maybe it's just insecurity. Maybe instead of insecurity, maybe it's anger, right? And the more we can shift up to a lesser,
mhm,
emotion, it then becomes easier to get to that place where, can I feel peace even though my life is falling apart? Can I feel joy even though my husband is passing? But when I see a red cardinal outside my window, that helps me to smile, right? So recognizing that we always have choice, we always have some semblance of control, but these tips that you gave us, we have to acknowledge that, right? I have to acknowledge that I do have some control. I just
mhm.
have to find it, right? Look at your strengths. So important. Speaking of strengths, I always love to ask the question, what flow means to you and what helps you to get into flow. And especially in this situation, because I think that there are a few things
Mhm.
that did help you, allow you to step into that state of flow and of joy, even though you were going through something extremely difficult, like using your strengths in writing, like being creative. And I want you to talk about your creativity because I don't know any other person. Honestly, you are the number one person on my list when I think of creative, because not only are you creative, but you make it a priority in your life.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to just share with everyone how you're creative and how you bring it into your life and keep it consistent to help
Mhm.
you flow.
Yeah. So last year, my word was creativity, right? Every year I choose a word. So last year my word was creativity, and I hired an art coach. And I had taken some classes. Her name is Nadine Hamill. She her studio is called Artful Dreamers. And I'd taken some classes, some in-person classes with Nadine, but because of the pandemic and everything, I reached out to her and I said, I'm interested in doing some art classes. Would you be willing to do art classes with me on Zoom? She lives in Washington State,
Okay.
across the country, right? And she said, I've never really done that before. And I said, okay, well, let's try. Let's do this on a trial basis. Well, it worked so well. We decided that on Wednesday afternoons, every week on Wednesdays, I would get on Zoom. She got on Zoom, and from 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 7 p.m., I art class.
Wow.
And it was everything from finger paints to arts and crafts to meditation to writing in a journal. I mean, it went so well, and it so informed the rest of my life.
Mm,
Now meet twice a week.
oh my goodness.
I think it's really, really important. I'll share with everyone that every once in a while, she will say, we're using your left hand today.
Ooh.
And I'm right-handed and I'm a perfectionist. I like for things to look really pretty, even the art that I create, right? To look pretty. So the first time she said, your left hand, I said, Nadine, I'm right-handed. She said, I know. We're left hand. And I thought, okay, so and she says, how are you feeling? And I said, I'm kind of struggling with this. I don't know that I like this project. And she said, just use your left hand. And what I learned from using my left hand was just to let go,
Yeah.
right? That this art class didn't have to end every art class with something pretty that I could hang on my wall.
Right.
A process. And our life is a process.
Mm,
Anytime you're facing a challenge, I say use your non-dominant hand.
mm-hmm.
It's really going to put things in perspective.
Right.
Okay. And I mentioned to someone that those classes taught me compassion.
Yeah.
And the person said, how did that teach you compassion using your left hand? And I said, because I became more compassionate with myself. I
Absolutely.
allowed that this isn't really what I want it to be, right? Other times we just use finger paints, and
Mm-hmm.
the power of the paint on your hand. I mean, I love a nice manicured hand. I'm not really liking the finger paints, or I
Yeah.
thought, right?
Yeah.
And when I started playing with the finger paint, it also just opened up a whole bunch of feelings and thoughts. And I um I love the fact that twice a week I turn my phone off
Yeah.
and I don't pay attention to emails. I don't schedule any calls. And I get to be in a space where we do a meditation, we talk, we create, and I'm able to just kind of let go of everything, right?
I
And
love that.
the
Mm-hmm.
moment in that space. And so that's how I live my creativity, right? To
Yeah.
do it that way. I'm also learning Portuguese. I think that's another aspect of my creativity, right? At my ripe old age of 62. I'm excited that I want to learn Portuguese. So every morning for about a half an hour, I've got an app on my phone that I speak Portuguese.
I
And
love it, Nancy. I love it. What this sounds like to me is play. And I'm reading a book and I'm so in love with this book, and I'm probably going to talk about it for a long time, called Stolen Time.
mm,
And and it really wants to remind us of play, of being able to do things that take us away from all of the things we have to do, that we should do, all the self-judgment, the lack of compassion, all of these things that you're talking about. And the fact that even though technology is, not going to stop advancing, we need technology, we're going to keep needing to use technology, it has really um, taken away our ability to focus, to even feel purposeful, because
mm,
we get lost in this world that looks so manicured and perfect, but
mm,
really no one is perfect on the other side of it, right? And we do get lost in that. So it talks about the old days, the times when, and I remember this fondly, I was even talking to my daughter about it. I feel badly that you didn't have the kind of childhood that I did, where I would get on my bicycle at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and not come back until dark. We didn't have phones, we didn't have beepers. Our parents just knew that we were going to be back,
mhm,
by the time the sun went down. Now, were there as many creepers back then that there are today? Yes. The
mm,
creepers were still there, but again, it goes back to, what am I saying to myself
mm,
about life, right? And if I'm not going to allow my child to get on a bicycle and go play and explore who she is, because I feel she's going to be kidnapped, what kind of life are we living, right? So this book has really opened my eyes in so many ways, and mostly for just helping us to realize that when we can step away and get into these moments of flow, whether it's through art, whether it's through other forms of creativity, whether it's through mindfulness, going on walks, whatever it may be, that is when we can really listen and get in touch with who we are, what's important to us, what our purpose is, so that we don't continue to steal our time, and we
mm,
can really focus and
mm.
make things happen. Because a lot of times we get in that, we spin and spin and spin, and technology just has a way of taking us away from all of those things. So we've gone on longer than usual, and that's okay, because I love all of the jewels that you shared. I really am going to push for the women to really watch this. I think they're going to get so much out of it. I think a good way of wrapping up, Nancy, is I would love to hear from you, and maybe a tip you can offer all of the ladies in the group is, if they are in a moment in their lives where they know they need to be fierce, what is one tip that you can offer them to help them, navigate forward and step into that fierceness?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think taking a good and intentional look at your strengths, right?
Okay.
Just writing them down. And if you're having a hard time, think of your best friend and
Mm,
her strengths. And chances are you have those same strengths
wow. Never
because
looked at it that way. Yep.
it attracts like, right?
Yes. Yes.
You can also ask your friend, your best friend, to say, what is it about me that makes you happy? What is it about me that inspires you? What is it about me that you are so impressed by? And I think once we take ownership of our strengths and admit that those are our strengths, I think it allows us to be really fierce
Yeah.
because we have navigated, each one of us, we've navigated through some really tough times and we came out mostly on top,
Yes.
right? And using our strengths has helped us, right? And I think so. So that's what I would recommend.
I love it. I love it. And I love it because it's practical. right? It's something that all of us can sit down and do and remind ourselves of how we're unique and what gets us through those tough situations. And even going back to, 2020 until now and thinking about it, like what did help me get through? What strength of mine helped me get through? And that's an incredible way to remind ourselves that we have what it takes to step into those difficult times, but also those exciting times that we're just fearful to step into, right?
Mhm.
And reminding ourselves that we have everything that we need to be able to do it, including a community of other women who are always going to have our back. So, I love this conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nancy. This was awesome. And enjoy the rest of your week. And continue being creative because I know you will. And one last thing, can you share the titles of your two books so that the women who want to go find them can do that?
Mhm. Yeah, so one is called The Decision to Scale,
Okay.
20 for women looking to grow their businesses. And
Okay.
one is The Decision to Start. Again,
Yes.
tips.
Light the fire. Let's start.
Yes.
I love it. All right. Start and scale, ladies. That is our task. All right, Nancy, much love to you. And I will see you very soon.
See you soon.
Love and light. Okay. Bye bye.